Welcome to Go Home Heat, a wrestling podcast. We have just watched, Ray and I, Bound for Glory. And this is the Impact Wrestling version of a WrestleMania. This is their main event. It was as you noted earlier,
a pay-per-view.
It is an actual pay-per-view where you really have to pay to view it, unlike the WWE Network where you're renting access to a catalog
Bound
and then they give you a
for
pay-per-view.
Glory.
Yes.
Right on Fight Net, right? Or what is it called?
Fight Net is how we got
Fight
it.
TV.
You get that in it.
Fight TV, right? Is that what it's called?
Right. And you get it on their website and you have access to it till late January as much as you want to watch it when you purchase it. Now, $39 I think was the price. That's not important. What's important is how good the show was. Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling has a long history of blisteringly great pay-per-views that tend to show up the big boys with their style and mix of fast-paced in-ring action and outlandish storytelling. This was not that pay-per-view. It was not bad, but it wasn't the home run that I usually get at their pay-per-views. And I'm not... Okay, here's the thing, and I think if you look on Twitter, everybody's saying the same thing. Not everybody's saying the same thing, but I think Kylie Ray not being in the title match, I don't know if she's hurt or maybe she's been around somebody that had COVID. As of 30 seconds ago, nobody knows for sure why she didn't show up. There was nothing about her not being there in the storyline. I'm sure they'll go back to it. But her not being in that match with Deonna Purrazzo for the title kind of took the air out of the room, even though they didn't have a crowd.
They did not have a crowd.
That also, to me, was troublesome for the show. A little bit.
Honestly, it's been kind of troublesome for every wrestling show.
Absolutely. You can't really hold it against them.
It's because that's wrestling. The crowd is wrestling's biggest asset.
Absolutely.
Removing the crowd from...
More so than even rock concerts.
Absolutely.
Pro wrestling requires a crowd in a lot of ways.
Removing the crowd from wrestling is like removing the backbone of something.
Absolutely. It's everything. Because the crowd heightens every moment. They gasp at everything that's awful. But now, I do not want you to think that I did not just have a great time watching this pay-per-view. I just was so happy to see a Purrazzo, Kylie Ray matchup where they get to go bell to bell and burn it up. Because they're both fantastic performers. And I like Su Yung, and we're going to talk about that match in a second. Now let's go into this pay-per-view and see what we thought. Match. First of all, Ken Shamrock was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
By The Rock.
By The Rock, which is neat. Also, Bret Hart, Mick Foley were on the pre-show in some way. I don't think they were there, but they did have little segment things. So that's a pretty big deal for a company like Impact to do. And I guess Mick and we've already seen Bret on AEW television once. So,
yes, absolutely. And
obviously, Dwayne is not under any type of contractual obligation with Vince where he has to do what Vince says.
Yeah.
Rock can do whatever the heck Rock wants to do.
Absolutely. At this point in his career, totally.
I'm not sure there's anybody in the world that can tell The Rock what to do.
No, actually. Maybe, like...
I don't think leaders of government can even tell that dude what to do at this point. Because he's got, like, his gross national product is probably heavier than any country out there right now. And straight up making money, not losing money like a lot of them. Okay, or us, for that matter. But here we go. So we get into this thing with a 6-way scramble for the X Division title that is got TJP, Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, Jordani Grace, Willie Mack, and the champion, Rohit Raju, are all in this match. Rohit Raju, the champion of the X Division, signed a contract in real life this morning. Congratulations to him for assuring himself a financial foundation going forward. Now we have Josh Matthews and Don Callis on commentary here. Bay and TJP start this thing out, and they are, as we all know, incredible athletes. Trey and Bay then get in there, and then Willie Mack takes it up another level because you see the thinner athletes that are almost ninja-like, the way they can perform, and then Willie comes in, and he's bigger than them, and he does all the same things they can do. It's really good early. Jordani Grace comes in and hits a couple shoulder tackles on Willie to knock him down, which is impressive because Willie's, 250, 270, something like that. Maybe more than that. TJP gets back in the ring. We have a lot of back and forth here. Dueling submission holds by these guys. This was really, really good, really fast-paced action. We do have the obligatory heel champion, middle of the ring, surrounded by all of his competitors as they beat him up. TJP once again manages to do a move I've never seen before, which is some form of a package leaping crucifix pin slam thingy. He's incredible. He winds up, as Grace winds up being pushed off the top rope onto the competitors outside the ring. TJP is across the other way. The pusher would be the Rohit Raju, evil champion, who pushes her. As those people are all scattered, it's 3 people. TJP hits his Mamba splash. Rohit rolls him out of the ring and gets the 1, 2, 3 win. Actually, Rohit hits a knee into TJP's head, covers, gets the 1, 2, 3, and still champion Rohit Raju, which is, I thought it was a good result. You want to have this heel lose. It was a good match A. So much talent, and you do want to have the heel lose in a scenario where he's one-on-one and somebody who has earned the right to be champion going over cleanly, right? What do you think?
I agree.
I agree too.
Mostly.
Okay, now we have a gauntlet match, and this was weird, and I called it when I was watching it. Another reason, through nobody's fault, but another reason why the pay-per-view had a little bit of a stinger. We have a gauntlet match for a title shot, over the top rope gauntlet match for a title shot. And Heath and Rhino's contracts are also on the line. We've been setting this up. You get to call your own shot, which means if you win this match, you get to pick any title you want to wrestle for if you win this gauntlet match. Rhino starts out first, and Daivari is here, who we haven't seen in a while, and he happened to look just like Perry Saturn. He was so yoked. He's been working out. I haven't seen him in a while. It's good to see him. He's a good wrestler. Larry D comes out next in a physical matchup, winds up being even more physical. Crazy Steve comes out. These guys just keep coming out. The spots are good. Tennille Dashwood is supposed to come out and she brings her photographer Kip out. Photographer Caleb with a K out. She sends him into wrestle for her for a little bit, which we find out he actually is a pro wrestler because he looked pretty good in this. Havoc comes out. Even Swoggle comes out, which they've dropped the horn on Swoggle. Interesting thing, Hornswoggle comes out to wrestle, who he is a smaller person.
Yeah.
Who wrestled in WWE for years. Most people know who he is.
Yeah.
But his Twitter feed is still at WWE Hornswoggle. So they put at WWE Hornswoggle underneath just the name Swoggle. He's dressed like
like he was in his one-man band days?
No, he's dressed like Myers. Myers winds up eliminating the first 5 or 6 people that get eliminated. He uses Hornswoggle to eliminate one person and then continues by just throwing Hornswoggle over the rope anyway. He does a selfie with Tennille, who is literally there just to do selfies during this match with her photographer, which obviously why she brought him there. He does a selfie with her, then he tosses her out of the ring. Eventually, this Taya Valkyrie comes out, and both of Triple X is out there, and she winds up stomping a mud hole in them. She looks so good in a ring with any style of competitor. Falaba comes out with the money that he's stolen to throw the wedding with that he no longer wants to give for the wedding. Hernandez comes out, sees him, throws him out of the ring. Falaba chases the money down, grabs it, and Hernandez chooses, rather than continue fighting, to chase his money up the rail and go away. So James Storm comes out. Cowboy James Storm of NWA recently has now showed up, a TNA original.
Dude, gotta get money, man. And NWA ain't
working right now.
Ain't working right now. And
I guess Billy's allowing everybody to go do their thing.
And I don't know if they're going to be working after this, so I think it's probably a good time to be jumping ship, at least through a money perspective.
He said, Billy Corgan did say, NWA will be back. He said it a few weeks ago, which is good.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, I don't know if it's going to stay.
Right. Now, we wind up with the 4 men in the ring at the end, which is Storm, Heath, Rhino, and Sami Callihan. Now, earlier I saw outside, while there was a lot of people in the ring, I saw Heath lying there, and he was hurt. And you could tell he was hurt. And the referee was talking to him. And every time they panned back to show everybody fighting at once, the Kier Hogans and all them, you could see Heath lying there, not getting up. You could tell he was disappointed, and I think he was just telling the ref, give me a chance. Let's see if I can go in a little bit. He had a lower body injury of some kind. When it comes down to 4 people, he tries to gut it out. He gets up to his feet, and he just has nothing. He can't fight. He can't even move. And so Storm hits him a couple of times and goes away from him. And I think at that point is when I noticed Rhino go stand by Heath. And I think and the referee was right there. And I think there was a discussion between the 3 of them. We got to change the finish. Because I'm 100% sure Heath was probably supposed to be involved in the finish, since the whole purpose of the match was to be for him to have a job there, along with Rhino, whether he gets to keep it. And Rhino kind of nodded and said something, and I would guess that what he said was, "We'll have to work. I got a different finish. I'll finish it." Heath gets out quickly thereafter. The doctors are checking on him immediately once he gets out of the ring and is eliminated. So we wind up with a one-on-one match. Sami Callihan, Rhino, because once the gauntlet part's over, you get down to 2 competitors, it turns into a one-on-one match. Rhino does manage to hit his finish after Callihan tries to cheat by grabbing a chair. And we get Rhino going over. He gets to stay and work. And Heath has a contract now, and he can work. And let's hope Heath gets well, because we had this whole program that got us all invested in Heath, who has been through... Heath has had a good career for a pro wrestler. He's made a lot of money. Seems like a good guy, but he's never been a top tier guy. Here we have a program where he joins a new company, and everyone is invested in him being the guy, getting to showcase who he is as a pro, and this is his moment, and he gets hurt. Ugh. Again, it's not the company's fault. It just hurts.
It's super weird, because the same thing has been happening as noticeably with like the NXT stars of the last generation, like Joe, Finn, all that stuff, and like it seems to be happening to a lot of the dudes, and it's very strange.
Well,
and also
some things are just blind luck.
Well, you also got to remember with Joe and with Finn and with all those guys, they were out there wrestling for an hour in Ring of Honor. God knows what spots they took in high school gyms. Right. You know?
Well, and Heath had a heavy working thing, but I also, things just happen, man. It's a shame, but it did happen. And then we move on to the cinematic portion of the evening. Moose versus EC3 from an undisclosed location. There's about 3 rows of seating in this small gymnasium. The ring is a very stripped down version of a pro wrestling ring. It doesn't, when they get thrown onto the ring, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of padding there. You have EC3's minions with their hoodies and their masks, about 8 of them outside of the ring. And Moose gets there with white jeans, white tank top, t-shirt, skin tight on him. EC3 is dressed ready to street fight as well, even though this isn't technically a street fight. And it's interesting because I didn't know for sure what they were going to try to go with here. I knew because it would be off premise, I knew it would be some form of cinematic thing. They didn't know how far they were going to go in. They played music during this thing. It was very dark music. I couldn't take it. I couldn't pick it out, but it sounded a lot like Typo Negative to me, which was really cool for a fight. When you're watching guys fight, that dark, deep music like that. And the premise here is they're fighting for EC3 is trying to show Moose how to be more of who he should be as a professional through, as he said, you cannot learn lessons not learned in blood are forgotten. Pre this. Okay, they get after it. It's pounding each other. Early on, EC3 gets split open with a right cross or a left cross, and it's not a wrestling match very much. It's mostly just punching each other, which is the physicality is the story we're trying to tell anyway. EC3 continues to smile as he's getting bludgeoned. Then when he rolls him out of the ring, Moose is going to slam his head on the steel steps. EC3 flips that. He flips Moose on over into the barricade. Now Moose is in trouble. And this is where EC3 begins to lecture him as they fight. He tells him that they take from you the people who want you to have this belt, the people who want you to do these things, take from you emotionally, spiritually, physically. The title means everything to you until you reach your full potential. You can't have this. He goes for the finish, and EC3 goes for his finish, and he has flashbacks to his title reigns and his championship finishers on different people, and he pauses, and that gives Moose enough time to back away and hit him with a spear. And that's when Moose begins to just rain down rights and lefts onto this bloody man that's in front of him. And his rivalries, this entire trip he's been on with EC3, begins to flash before his eyes, and he begins to scream, "Is this what you want? Is this what you want?" And EC3 yells back at him, "Yes, it is what I want." And EC3 tells him, and the crowd that is EC3's minions is beating on the ring apron, chanting "Moose, Moose, Moose." And it's such a strange thing because the whole time we're thinking the purpose of this is for EC3 to take the TNA championship away from him, and we begin to. I'm guessing that the story here and what we're beginning to realize is the purpose of this is to make Moose the monster and the deserving champion he should be, because remember, he just basically stole this title that didn't even exist and anointed himself champion and then picked his contenders. And EC3 is trying to make him into the strong, go through anything, human wrecking ball of a champion the Moose is capable of being. And that's when he says yes and all that, that's when the Moose grabs the title belt and runs it straight through EC3's head, finishing him off. And he left. And I thought this was amazing. I'll be interested to see what the world thinks of these things, because it's always funny because some people just don't like cinematic in general. Some people will have wanted them to go further in, and it is confusing. Why doesn't EC3 want the title? Why was the whole purpose of this entire feud for Moose to come out of this a more determined champion? It's strange, right? Is EC3's character some form of a conscience of pro wrestling? Does he continue to do this? He has alluded to how much he doesn't like the bureaucracy of wrestling and so he can go down those roads here. I'm excited for the future of this, if he even wants to stay. He has a contract with Ring of Honor evidently as well. Scott Gilmore said some things that could be interpreted either as real or not, about he'll just leave whenever he gets mad and go work someplace else and come back. I can't remember the exact quote. You can look it up on Twitter. Just go Gilmore EC3 and check it out. Next up, Ken Shamrock versus Eddie Edwards. Sami Callihan is on hand to watch. Shamrock pummels Eddie early to the point at which you wonder if they're going to stop this thing. Eddie does eventually get the comeback. He hits the Boston Knee Party. You think it might be over. He manages to get free. There is a scenario where he's got him in an ankle lock. Maybe Shamrock will tap. I'm going to go through this match fairly quickly. Neither one of these guys at this point in their career blow me away wrestling-wise. I like Ken Shamrock. I respect what he's done. And I like Eddie and respect what he's done for the business. But it's really hard for these two guys in this particular matchup to really blow you away with wrestling. They did it. They wrote the script right. Shamrock pummels him. Eddie withstands it. Eddie gets him in the ankle lock. Callahan turns out the lights. When the lights come on, oh my gosh, Callahan has the bat that he used to almost blind Eddie in their rivalry years ago. Oh, lo and behold, Eddie has a kendo stick, so Eddie wins out with the kendo stick. But that, of course, is the distraction that allows Shamrock to get the belly-to-belly suplex and the ankle lock where Eddie taps out. It was fine. But again, it was fine. All right. The North, Alexander and Page, Motor City Machine Gun, Shelley, Chris Sabin, Ace Austin, Madman Fulton, Gallows, and Anderson are ready to go. And before the match even starts, the North, Alexander, Josh runs up the runway, DDTs Alex Shelley onto the steel. Alex Shelley gets carted out with a concussion. I'm 100% sure Alex Shelley was not really hurt, that this was all part of the script. It's kind of baffling to me. I was so pumped with the way the Motor City Machine Guns and the Good Brothers have been getting after each other. I was so pumped to see these two in this match against each other. And yet here we go. We've started out by eliminating one of the members of the rivalry before the match even starts. Now, in this match's defense, boy, was Chris Sabin good. Lord have mercy. He was in the ring. He started out with Ethan Page. I apologize. He starts out taking a beating from the North. Then he takes a beating from Fulton and Ace Austin. They just rotate whooping him the whole first part of the match. Remember now, any of these tag teams can be in a match, and Sabin's the only guy getting beat up for the first part of it. Eventually, the Good Brothers get to tag in, and we get them versus Madman Fulton and Ace, which, again, this has been a rivalry that's been kind of building up, which was well done. Big old Gallows holds off Madman for a little while. Sabin gets to tag himself in. He hits a crossbody. He hits a 2-for-1 DDT, and he has all the offense now for a while. So, again, Sabin's 3/4 of the match early on, and he's doing all the offense, and earlier he was doing all the getting beat up. He can just slap go. He can just slap go. And so then we wind up with Carl Anderson in there, and the commentator Josh says there may not, technically wrestling wise, Machine Gun Anderson might be as good as anybody in the world. He's not wrong. We don't get to see that much because of the scenarios he's been in lately, but he can go. Again, great performance here. Sabin winds up kicking out after he gets isolated by the North later on. The Good Brothers crawl to the apron, and Sabin crawls to tag them in. We get a Good Brothers North battle. Eventually, this winds up happening to where the North use a championship belt to hit opposition and get the 3 count, and I was stunned. And this was a very good match. For what they wanted them to do, it went really well. Sabin was fantastic. Everybody who wrestled was really good. I could not believe they put the belt on the North because they were the team that I thought they were the longest reigning champs until the Motor Machine. I almost said a cuss word. Apologize.
Shooting hard.
Yes, the Motor City Machine Guns. Beat them one-on-one.
The Motor City
I
Machine
totally
Guns.
apologize for that. I love the Motor City Machine Guns. Sorry, I started to talk too fast. But so it was really great, and I was just a little stunned by the ending and stunned by the beginning. But interesting, when we rebooted the company at the last pay-per-view, we put belts on people who had not been working for the company very long. This match, we stick it back on the North, who was just a few months ago the longest reigning Impact champions of all time, and it's interesting that we've gone back to that. And there's many stories you can tell out of this. I was a little stunned by all of it, but very entertained, and it was an interesting. The wackiness that is Impact Wrestling is up next, and Taya wonders if Rosemary knows that Bravo has unicorns and penguins set up for the wedding, and Johnny Bravo says he is the boss in this relationship. He wears the pants, and that Rosemary will accept whatever he does and be happy about it. He's not having any of this, and he storms off. And Taya is wondering how Johnny can act like this, and it is really, it's kind of a neat scenario because Johnny is acting exactly like Taya all of a sudden. And that's who he's been her sidekick for the whole time. Now, if they're really going to have this fluffy, wonderful wedding, and they're literally bringing Satan back from the dead in order to perform the ceremony, this could be wacky Wednesday night. But I'll digress. Let's go. And now what to me was the main event of the evening. To me, the most prestigious belt in all of Impact Wrestling is the Women's Knockouts Championship. We have Deonna Purrazzo versus Kylie Rae with Susie. Nope. Kylie Rae doesn't come out. Susie comes out, but she is not Susie, because if you remember, Purrazzo had destroyed Susie's arm. So when Susie comes back, she's no longer Susie.
She's Su Yung.
She is Su Yung, the undead bride, and it is on like Donkey Kong. And she puts a whooping on Deonna early. Deonna was scared to start with. Now Deonna has Kimber Lee, not Kylie Rae, Kimber Lee at her side for this match, and she does try to help her periodically. Su Yung dominates early. Purrazzo finally gets this thing into an actual technical wrestling match, which is what she's the best at, and she excels in this. She rolls around. I love the fact that Su Yung, when she plays this undead character, never comes out of character. Even when she is in trouble physically, she doesn't whine or moan. She still gives like an animalistic yell, which is a neat thing. Now the problem with her though in her matches for me has always been if you're always in character, there are only so many things you can do. And I like Kane. I like Taker. Taker was able to kind of get out of that. Taker broadened what he was allowed to do so much. Even though he stayed in character the whole time, it worked like the most perfect that anybody could work in that scenario. Kane was similar to that, but not quite what Taker could do. And here we have a scenario too where, just like if you were to watch, basically, she has to stay in character. Certain things she just can't really do because she's possessed or whatever, right? That's kind of a weird thing to say.
Yeah,
okay.
That's strange, dude.
She does wind up getting tied up. Deonna does tie her up in a Sonata type New Japan lock that she calls the Paradise Lock, that's actually in the ropes, which was kind of a neat thing. It's the back and forth here winds up being really good, but at a certain point, Su Yung ducks a kick. Purrazzo kicks the referee. This is when, obviously, the shenanigans begin. Kimber Lee rolls a steel chair after having hit Su Yung with it, I believe. Rolls the chair towards Purrazzo, which doesn't wind up helping Purrazzo. Kimber Lee gets her into the claw, the bloody gloved claw, and then we get Purrazzo manages to get her in an armbar out of that and tries to get the armbar on the she's got her right arm between her legs and is going to pull back on the left arm. And as she pulls it, somehow Kimber Lee is able to, she must have wonderful rotator cuffs, because it pulls her hand back and she's able to stick her hand into Deanna's mouth, getting her into the Manimal Claw again, which forces her to release the hold. Su Yung is now impermeable to pain. She absorbs 2 kicks. She hits a cutter from the second rope as she's being pulled into a different move. Then she hits a panic switch, and another homegrown talent goes over. We signed Purrazzo from NXT after she gets fired in this huge exodus of WWE talent. We immediately put the belt on her. She's a great wrestler. She does well as a champion. But here we are at the biggest event of this company's season, and they go back to homegrown talent again. They go back to a person who's been with the company for years on the biggest stage that they have. And I thought that was an interesting result. And it's a thread that runs through this thing, is we're going back to what got us here, although obviously all these performers will still be there and chasing titles. Now, the actual main event of the evening would be Rich Swann versus Eric Young. For a championship, and Eric Young is the fantastic evil champion, and he attacks just like you would think. He goes after the neck. He hurts the neck. Now you have Swann with a bad neck and a bad leg. The match, that's the story we tell. Rich Swann absorbs all kind of pain moments. Every now and then he has a few moments where he's able to ignore it and create a wrestling match, but then, you know, you go back to the spot that he's hurt and he can't withstand it, and then he winds up in trouble again. But he won't quit, and he won't quit, which is what Rich's character is. That's the story we've told as he's come back through the ankle injury that EY put upon him. Eric goes on a run here where he bites Swann in the face. Then he manages to drop an elbow drop, Macho Man style, onto the back of the neck of Swann, who, again, as we said, had a bad neck. Then he flips him over immediately and puts him in a crossface. So now, you know, of course Swann's going to tap. No, he manages to crawl to the bottom rope. And Rich does a springboard. He wants to do a springboard cutter, but he winds up springboarding. These were some really fantastic things. Rich is really coordinated. He springboards onto EY's shoulders, and that turns into pretty much an F5 by EY on Swann, and really jacks him up right here. But then EY puts him into the Tree of Woe, and he's going to pull him out and turn that into something else, and that becomes a cutter counter into a springboard cutter, which turns into a Phoenix Splash. And wow, all of a sudden, your new champion is no longer the guy who comes in late. It's the guy who has been with the company and struggled and been here for a long time. And lo and behold, they have rebooted their shows, and this was a good match. It was a good story told, and another shocking. I thought for sure Eric was just going to run right through this guy. When we started this pay-per-view out, I thought the Good Brothers were going to win. I thought EC3 was going to win. I thought EY was going to continue to be the champion. I thought Purrazzo would continue to be the champion. I thought Heath was going to win his match. Heath didn't win. Rhino won. That was the only thing I got right, though. And even that wasn't really right.
It seems like they're trying to go for a more thing that, like, oh, the new crop is better than the old crop.
Well, maybe it's just as simple as these guys that have been with us have earned it.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, because EY was with them too. You know,
EY was with them years ago, but he left of his own accord.
Still an original, you know.
He is actually an original. He is we were going live from Tennessee in the Asylum original. He, Rude, AJ, all those guys, you know.
Yeah, and
Team Canada original. He really is an original.
I don't know if that would necessarily work there, but I do think it works better as the new crop is better than the old crop type ways with EC3 losing to Moose, and of course Rick Swan beating EY. And I don't know about the Deonna Purrazzo thing, but
I think they just had. My guess is they planned on Kylie Ray going over, and they just decided, hey, we're gonna continue the idea of having a new champ. And who knows, maybe you put Kylie Ray into a scenario with Sue. I hope she's okay. I have no idea what happened there, and I just looked it up. They still don't know for sure, but it is being reported by Brian Alvarez, the famed wrestling reporter Brian Alvarez, that Kylie Ray had an injury that is not deemed serious and was held out of the night's performance. That is strange that they did not figure out some form of a storyline or something to give us warning instead of having the announcers just say, well, we don't know why she's here. If she was hurt, why didn't you just tell us she got hurt? Or better yet, why didn't you have her take a picture injured somewhere and say somebody jumped me and I don't understand? But whatever. I would have liked to have known, but it's okay. It was fine. Now, what did you think, Ray?
And
do you echo my sentiments?
This match was good. I like this pay-per-view overall was good for me. I felt like it
just
it
not
wasn't
great.
That's the problem.
Right.
It was good, but I don't know if it was good enough.
Right. It could have been better. Now, I did enjoy it. I feel like I'm poo-pooing on something that was pretty doggone good.
If it had the crowd, it would have been so much better.
Absolutely. A crowd would have made the six-man tag and the tag team wrestling match incredible.
I just said there, the crowd would make this so much better. Add that to everything I've said about everything this year except for maybe the Fiend John Cena match. Because
that didn't need a crowd. Right.
Normal wrestling needs a crowd.
But if you would have had the story you told with Eric Young where he's getting bludgeoned after already being injured and he fights through it and then he gives you that flurry of offense to win it in like 10 seconds, the crowd would have gone crazy. And then when the locker room comes out and anoints their guy above their heads while they hold him as he holds his title up, and we cut to credits with a typical Impact crowd going nuts. That would have been the moment.
Here's something funny.
But you know what? They can't do anything about that.
Here's something funny though. How do you think they would have reacted to Kylie Ray not being in the match?
It's same way I did. Everybody
just the air would be.
They may have had to do something for a crowd. Right? They may have forced it in. Okay, so for me, I enjoyed it, and I recommend it if you haven't seen it, watch it sometime.
It was solid.
Right, absolutely. Now, for me, KP, from my guy Ray here, the Go Home Heat Kid, this has been a Go Home Heat special production of the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. Copyright 2020. Go on.